Welcome to Ngosti Talk Shows. Lead from within.
Find your own voice.
Challenges we have had to overcome in 2020.
Find your own voice.
The world has become united by the unseen, knowing there are no guarantees for tomorrow.
Lead from within.
Find your own voice.
Let the world hear your voice and be filled within.
For the day has come for you to be a great leader.
The time has come to break away from the pain, distraction, experience the unthinkable.
Good afternoon, everyone. The time has come for you to break away from the pain and welcome to Ngosti Talk Show. I'm your host today. Over to you, Dr. Biget. Please introduce yourself to our audience.
Thank you, Numsa. Thank you. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, where depend on the time you are. And have you ever had someone hurt your feelings, where you feel betrayed? Have you ever had something happen in your life that you feel betrayed? Sometimes when that happens, it's very easy, isn't it? That's happened to me many times, for us to be stuck to be stuck with it and have difficulty for letting go and moving on. And so what can you do? So you're no longer trapped by the betrayer, because you want to be free and you want to be able to move on with your life, and you want to be able to move and win beyond the betrayer. And so we're here today to share with you what you can do such that you can move past that and not be crucified by your betrayer, because the power actually is in your hand. And I am Birgit Ten. I'm a grief recovery coach, life success coach, and an author and a speaker. And I look forward to be helping you to regain your power and triumph beautifully and easily.
Thank you, Dr. Biget. Over to you, Sharon. Please introduce yourself to our audience.
Yes, it's wonderful to be here today. Thank you, Namsa. And wonderful to be with everyone else. Yes, my name's Sharon Lovegrove, and I help women that suffer with imposter syndrome. So they have this desire, this need, this absolute want to be perfect. But the thing is, we're not. None of us are perfect. So that's really what I do, is really help people to move into a space where they recognize that they are absolutely perfect in their imperfection. That is what allows us to survive, to thrive, to get through difficulties. And today is going to be about being able to deal with betrayal. And that's where people are always, in essence, imperfect. And how do we handle situations when people are imperfect and yet doing something that may be perfectly right for them and imperfectly right for you? So that's me, and I'm looking so forward to hearing everybody else chat today.
Thank you so much, Shireen. Over to you, Brenda. Please introduce yourself to our audience.
You're muted, Brenda.
You're still muted. Brenda, you're muted.
You're still muted.
Okay, I'm here. Okay, this is my thing. I'm raw and real, and I'm definitely not perfect, as you can tell. And so I'm Brenda Dempsey, and I'm a publisher, I'm an author, I'm a speaker, I'm a coach, and like these other women here today, we're on missions, and we're on missions to bring the best out in you wherever you are in your life, whatever is keeping you small, whatever is making you feel betrayed, whether by yourself or by others, because it's about choice. It's about choosing to feel betrayed or choosing to let go. So when I am working with wonderful, wonderful people, men and women, it's about helping them find that voice, sharing the story, and letting go of all the imperfections, letting go, well, accepting them, but letting go of what's keeping them small to find the voice to rise and to roar. So today, talking about betrayal and being crucified, how apt for Good Friday. And I just love that. So thank you for the topic for today. So I'm going to be quiet for the moment, but I'm sure you'll hear from me later on if I remember to unmute.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Brenda. Over to you, Carol Ann. Please unmute yourself and introduce yourself to our audience.
Thank you. Yes, and good afternoon here from London. And yes, it's about unmuting yourself, unmuting your story. And as the writing facilitator, that's what I do. I support soul-driven entrepreneurs in becoming more productive with their writing. But more importantly, what they experience is free-flowing writing. They experience an unlocking of the writer within and getting their story written, getting their book written. And all of that has come about through my own experience of unlocking the writer within. And we all have a story within us that would support other people. And I'm sure a lot of you will have a story of betrayal that you could share. And I know it's painful. And what I do is I support you in actually by holding that space so that you can go into that pain and write from that pain. Because writing from there and sharing what you went through and how you came out the other side is what will support other people in actually being able to see a glimmer of light that maybe they can't see at the moment. So it is about getting your story written and knowing that you can impact other people. You can make a difference in this world with your story. So I'm Carol Ann, the writing facilitator, unlocking the writer within.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Carol Ann. So our topic today is how to survive betrayal. Don't let yourself be crucified by it. So who chose this topic, by the way? Was it Carol Ann? Please, can you take this stage and let us know why you choose this topic and how does it relate to your story?
It was something that happened to a friend of mine this week, and I just started thinking yesterday. I thought, oh, and then of course with what today is about, the topic that just came rolling, you know, the words just rolled out, and then it got me thinking. It made me think about times when I've been betrayed, and one in particular, because it's like, well, what is betrayal? And there's many forms that it can, take. And one of them is where you've trusted somebody and they turn their back on you. And I remember many years ago when I was head of department and we were going through quite a difficult time. And I was in with the headmaster and the head of sixth form. And all of a sudden, I just felt this, wow. I felt like I was being crucified in a way, because the head of sixth form, I felt she was betraying me, because I felt she was turning against me, siding with the headmaster and making me feel wrong. And I felt like I was fighting for my life, and it wasn't a very pleasant feeling. You sort of takes your breath away and you're thinking, what's going on here? And then you're having to remind them, well, look, but this is where I've succeeded. This is what I've done. And then they're going, oh, completely forgotten about that. I can feel that anger is still here. It's like, wow, I'd forgotten all about this until, it sort of popped in my mind. I was thinking about betrayal. And that you can have these emotions around it. And as you can feel, this anger is still there because there was no acknowledgement of what I had done. It was just, what haven't you done? What haven't you done? And why are you doing this? You know, and I'm going, whoa. So I think it's a great one to explore. How do you move forward from that? How do you come to move out of it and keep your own sanity and grow from it? And I have grown from it. And I think out of this conversation, what I'm realizing is there's some more growth for me to have, just because of the emotion that just suddenly came up right there, that anger that is still there. So yeah, that's where it came from.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Carol Ann. Brenda, would you like to add anything regarding the topic? Betrayal.
So I've unmuted. Got that right. So betrayal, I've been thinking about that word, you know, since I read the topic, and as Caroline has been speaking. And betrayal for me, now I love words that begin with B, but there's something about the word betrayal that just does not align with who I am today. And I've been sitting thinking, who's betrayed me in my life? And I'm racking my brain. So possibly I could go and say my husband, when he betrayed me because he abused me. So is that betrayal? You could argue that abuse is a form of betrayal. And then I'm thinking my life and thinking of, where are those low points that upset me about other people? Now, could you describe betrayal as being let down? Is that betrayal? Like when you organise things and people don't show up and you take it personally and you think, well, why did they not show up? You know, I'm giving all my love, I'm doing all this wonderful stuff, and nobody's here to appreciate my efforts and my sharing. Is that betrayal? Some question, is that a form of betrayal for me? And then I'm thinking, going back to Caroline, I had exactly a similar issue as a teacher, quite a new teacher. And when I was picked upon by this head teacher and the assistant head, and I worked my butt off, and my kids were doing amazing well. But yet these two women felt that they could take me into a room and attack me without any warning. And I was in so much disbelief myself. So I relate 100%, Caroline, to sitting there going, what's happening here? There's a bomb gone off and nobody told me. You know, was that a form of betrayal? I'm not sure. But it was a form of bullying, that's for sure. You know, so I think it's about your understanding of what betrayal means, because I can't think in my life where someone's actually stabbed me in the back, which I would call betrayal. You know, they've lured me into a false sense of security. But for the three reasons that I've just described, there possibly are elements of betrayal. But just what I want to say about that is, and it's what Caroline said, the emotion still came up. So for me, getting over anything that is adverse in your life or negative in your life is you've got to surrender to it and just accept that it's an experience and take the emotion out. Then you've got to forgive the element within it, really forgive. And then you just need to let it go, because when you decide and choose, what I said at the top, when you choose to not let it make you angry or upset you, because it's a choice, because when we stop reacting and choose to respond, we can engage our mind in something more aligned to keep our energy high, to keep us in that high vibrational state of being happy and just going, well, it's not going to affect me. It's not as easy as these words. There's work you've got to do. You've got to do meditation, things like the Ho'oponopono, all sorts of little tools out there, tapping, energy work, chakra work, you know, you name it. There's many tools and many therapies, many strategies that you can use. But it's about the choice. It's about letting go and freeing yourself from the cords that bind you and imprison you. And when you understand that, then it's much easier to let go and forgive, and then you can move on. And I suppose that's why I'm struggling with betrayal, because I cannot find any major issues with it. I've explained 3 things that I think it is. So for me, it always comes back to letting go and forgiveness so that you can align yourself with who you are.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Brenda. Over to you, Shireen. I like to hear all different opinions.
You're muted. You're muted.
Touche. Touche. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Okay, so yeah, thank you, Namsa. Yeah, I mean, what got me really excited about the topic today was not because I have betrayed, because we've all been betrayed in some ways, and I'm guessing that, you know, I've got experiences in many different ways, and I've probably betrayed a lot of people too in different ways. And I think what really came up for me was the idea that this is about a contract. We create contracts with people. And what happens is we maybe not, and because we're human, we just go into these contracts. Within 5 minutes of you having met someone, you've already created a contract. This is the secret. We create a contract straight away on our expectations of how people are going to behave. And we then also create the contract of how we must behave. And so what happens, or they create the contracts for us. So what happens is we go into a dance, and then when one of us changes, we've broken the contract. And when we break the contact, we break we break not just the contact, but we break contact. And part of the contract is to bring you together. That's what a contract does. And now you're breaking the contact. And so therefore you're changing the context, you're changing everything. And the person that's changing or has done the changing, they're moving off. But you are left with the feeling. You're left with holding that horrible, horrible emotion, and you don't know yet how to resolve it because you're not in that space to be able to do it. You don't understand all the ingredients that are running with it. And why it seems so significant for me today is, even though Jesus knew he was going to die, he was going to surrender to death. One of his last words were, you know, why did you fail me? So he had to let go of everything and surrender. And there was something there that makes me think about what happens when we go into this betrayal. We feel like we've sacrificed something in favor of something that we'd put faith in, and then it got taken away. And so part of the real skill is learning to look deeply at how you were in the contract, so that when the contract got broken, how can you now contact you in a very different way? And that word con means towards, to be with, together. So that's why I think it's, you know, when we think of betrayed, we are definitely thinking of this contract that has been broken.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Shireen. Over to you, Dr. Bigot, please.
Thank you, Numsa. Yes, I love all the different takes on betrayal. Shireen says it's a contract, and when Jesus say at the end at the crucifixion, why did you fail me? And many times we see what things happen in our life or somebody else's life, like Caroline have with her friend recently, that very apparent of a betrayer of when somebody supposed to be doing something or something and it's not happening. I actually would invite you to also keep in mind about self betrayer. Because sometimes it's not only other people fail us, but so to say, as Jesus, the master teacher says, but many times, sometimes because we want to be fit in, as Shireen says when she first did the introductions, we want to fit in because of we have these imperfection syndromes, and therefore we try to become somebody else to fit to what society say and this and that. And then before you know it, you dampen your own voice, you dampen your own heart. Psychology Today actually has an article, a very beautiful article about self-betrayal. It says, break the self-betrayer habit. And one sentence in there that jumped out to me a little time ago when I first read it is, in its worst form, self-betrayer is a kind of suicide. It's a kind of suicide because people can betray you and do this and that to you. You can choose. You have the power to keep going using some tools that we'll share today. But if it is you choosing to not be true to yourself, then it doesn't matter what other people tell you, do to you, or whatever circumstance happening, and it is still at the end of the day up to you to change what's going on and to see things differently. With some of us early before this touch about perceptions, to see things differently and to actually when I coach, to actually be grateful about the betrayer because many times betrayer to a degree is good for us to help us grow.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Bigot. I am gonna comment on what Brenda was saying. Is it Brenda or Shireen? When you were talking about when we meet people, we create contract. Yes, when we meet people, we create contract, we make assumptions about people, we make decisions. And also what Dr. Bigot and Brenda, what he was saying about Jesus when he was crucified. His last word were, Father, I commit my spirit into your hands. So he handed over his spirit and surrendered because he knew he was being betrayed at that moment. So what is betrayal? Betrayal, it can be a marriage, that when you enter a marriage, you imagine yourself growing old with your spouse, and then that when the relationship ends, it feels like everything, it feels like a betrayal. It's a health. When a health doesn't go your way, that doesn't go well, you're being told the sad news by the doctors. When you receive that shock, it can feel like a betrayal. So that's how I see that betrayal can go in so many different ways when it comes to life. So that's my intake when it comes to betrayal, even with the relationships with families or business. If a business deal doesn't go the way you want, it can feel like a betrayal, but then it's up to you how you respond in that betrayal that we think is a betrayal. So I'm sort of with Brenda, and I'm with Shireen and Carol Ann and Dr. Bigot, because you all make it different points by speaking in one voice. So before you guys make a comment, how to come back, how when you've been betrayed, when you feel that you've been betrayed, how do you come back from that shock, that betrayal? Shireen?
I think the biggest things is to to recognize that you're the one that's feeling it. Yeah. And you need to go inside and look at what was the contract you created. And when you work out how that contract was created, what was your contract to you as well? and I know that's what Birgit was talking about as well. What are the contracts that you create and gave to this person? What was the contract that was in the bigger picture? And start to really try and separate out all the things of what you thought, felt, and believed were true about this relationship or this situation. And often you find that when we experience betrayal, we often get a sense of being not having efficacy. We often feel we're not in charge. And that makes part of the feeling of betrayal really so bad, because now we've got to move out of our comfort zone into another place where we can be more resourceful. And that can be quite difficult, because if you've been, say, for example, in a contract with someone for a very long time, you kind of don't change very often. And so what happens is when this big betrayal does happen, what do? You go into panic stations. And so the betrayal gets to be a lot worse. Instead of looking at it and going, okay, this has happened. This is awful. This is probably one of the worst things I could ever experience. But there is meaning in here for me. There is learning in here for me. I don't know what it is yet, but there's learning. And to let yourself go to the space to really feel it and to understand it, because really I do believe this is kind of like that learning of how to surrender, as you were saying, Namsa. You know, we can only have peace when we let go of the ego that's holding on to the feeling. We have to let go of the ego because part of the betrayal is we are angry about what's happened to us. If we're able to let go of the anger, let go of what it was all meaning for us, and we come back to ourselves and we surrender and say, well, yeah, this wasn't nice, but how did I contribute in this? Where was my responsibility in this? And what can I do now? That what happens is your brain starts to process in a very different way. And in actual fact, your brain starts to grow different neurons, and you start to feel a lot better, because now you have control. You have a different control, but it's not a control from the old ego, but it's from control of an expanded self, a self that is connected to more, connected to that wise inner guide, or more even connected to the creator, in whichever way you think about the creator. So for me, that's how I would think about it. It is in order to deal with betrayal, you've got to go to the ultimate surrender. You've got to surrender your attachment to the contract.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Carol Ann, please, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, it's interesting. As Shireen was talking, I started thinking, because, yeah, what was that contract? In other words, what's the underlying assumptions that you've made when you're with somebody? And I think that is key there, because you meet somebody, you automatically make some assumptions. And so it really comes down to communication and lack of communication, because you're making those assumptions, but you're not, communicating them. You're not sharing them with the other person, and you're not actually getting, well, what assumptions have they made? So you're not getting their world either. And I started thinking back to that scenario with the head teacher and the head of sixth. And I guess my assumptions were that they should cover my back, and that they weren't. But I realized I wasn't very good then at communicating or actually listening to what they were saying and really getting into their world. And I think I was quite dogmatic in those days. We know it's got to be this way. We've got to continue doing this, rather than maybe being a little bit more flexible. So there's a lot, sort of, as you can hear, it's going, oh yeah. And it is taking those learnings, it is going in within. And I think what Brenda was saying about, she can't find any major issues with betrayal. very often we look for major ones, but the minor ones are the ones that can have so much power. And actually, she spoke about not being stabbed in the back. But if you think somebody's got your back, and then you find out they don't, for me, that is a form of they've stabbed you in the back, you know? So again, it's a playing with words, and I'm hearing a lot of different words here saying the same thing. And I think this is it's what always threw me about our language. And it always used to frustrate me, because someone would say something in one way and then someone would say it in a different way. And I'm going, but you're saying the same thing. And I remember being in a conversation and saying something, and then someone said, oh, talked about a conduit. And I'm going, what do you mean by that? And when they explained what conduit meant, I said, but I've just said that, but I use different words, you know? And it's like, it's really understanding our language and understanding what someone else is saying, and go into those assumptions and realizing actually and acknowledging that someone does have assumptions that they've made, or even that you've made, and really getting real, open and honest, and be truthful about what are those assumptions and where you've let yourself down on them, you feel they've let you down on them. But forgiveness is about accepting. And sometimes I think it's not about accepting the behavior, the behavior, that's right. It's the forgiveness comes from it forgiving the soul of that person. They did what they did, and there was a lesson that you learnt from it, and it was coming from a higher place, a much higher place. And when you learn that lesson, you can forgive the soul of that other person and move on. And it is by being able to forgive that you can move on. So playing around with these words, really listening in, and then making, well, what's here for you? But it is going in, learning the lessons, what were the assumptions you made, and really get real with it and forgive yourself, and then forgive the other people as well. And move on and grow from it. That's what we're about. If you're not growing, you're dying. So don't be rigid like I used to be. I used to be so rigid, you know, and now there's much more flexibility and opening up into the richness of this language, exploring words and finding out what, and being open to how someone else says something, but being able to then converse with them so that you get a true understanding of where you're both coming from. You know?
I love that. I love that, Carol Ann. I love how you and Shireen's keep saying that, you know, we assume that people would be this way, or we assume they would be that way. And I think a lot of time that is something that the cause of a lot of different pain in us, including betrayal of any size. It's very interesting when you both was discussing about that. George Bernard Shaw's quote, or what George Bernard Shaw's and he's a poet, a political activist, and an author, came to my mind. And George Bernard Shaw says, "The only man I know who behaves sensibly is my tailor. He takes my measurement anew each time he sees me. The rest go with their old measurements and expect me to fit with them." And so many times, particularly when we're in a relationship, in a marriage, in a work relationship or something, and we just keep going and assume that the person is still the same person whom we married, 10, 20, 40 years ago, and everybody and even your physical body is not the same as it was 10 years ago or 20 years ago. Your cells, every single cells, I'm a doctor, and every single cells in your body anew at certain rate. Everybody's slightly different rate, but nobody is the same body. Your skin, actually, you just don't know it because it's happened a little bit at a time, but your skin is not the same skin you have 20 years ago. And so how could you expect a person to be the same person that's exactly the same person 20 years ago? And so, sometimes it is a matter of understanding that as you change, everybody else and everyone else in the world change as well. And that's when you'll be able to actually take a step back and said, okay, well, I changed this way. Let's see, if we were going like this and I changed these directions, why would I assume this person will also come along with me to these directions? Perhaps they're going to the opposite directions for their growth and for what's life calling them. And then when we're able to see it a little bit from that way and not assuming that somebody's supposed to get your back, so to say, or assuming anything, then it will be a little bit less painful, by understanding that, by letting go that we're not this way. Nobody is the same persons all the time, and even day to day you might not know what that person dreamed last night, and so therefore you expecting them to be in certain mood and certain way, and they happen to not be, and understand you differently is something that's really a very powerful thing. That's what really caught my attentions there, and how you perceive how people behave differently.
So much. Thank you so much, Brenda.
How'd you come out of betrayal? I mean, you ladies, so insightful, and you've said all in different ways. I'm going to pick up on Caroline because I love words. And for me, it's about the energy of words as well. So today is National Autism Day. And when you work with people who are on the autistic spectrum, you have to learn, as an educator, to be able to say the same things in 10 different ways. So language is very important. How we put language together is very important. And knowing that when you say something, depending on where that person is at that point in their head, what's going on, are they paying attention? Do they think you've said something different? Well, there's so many different aspects going on for them, that even when you say something simple like we'll begin in 10 minutes, that can actually get misconstrued so much. So no wonder we perceive things as betrayal, because it becomes our reality, what's going on inside our head. So language is very important. Our self-talk is very important. So the mind can play tricks on us in terms of what betrayal is. What is our understanding of betrayal? Because what one person might do to one person could be the end of the world, but to another, it's like it just slides off them. It's not important. So it all depends on where you are, what your stories are, what work you've done on yourself as your response to betrayal and not reaction, because that's two different paths. I'm just trying to remember the name of the poem where the man comes, or the person comes to the fork and the road less traveled. Which road are you going to take? Am I going to react to an act by someone else, or am I going to respond because I've done so much work on myself? So there is not one answer for the question, how do you come out of betrayal? For some people, they might come out quickly, and other people it will take years. And I suppose looking, the biggest betrayal is obviously my marriage and the abuse that I've been through in my life. So how long did it take me to come out of that? Oh, good 10 years, easy, easy. Could I have come out of it sooner? No, because when you feel you've been betrayed by your perception and how you feel and what your emotions and your mindset and where you are on your spiritual journey, all of that comes together in the melting pot. That will determine what you've got to do. But the first thing I would say is just let it be. You know, the great Beatles song, Let It Be. When something happens to you, just take time out and just lick those wounds, and then learn to not judge and learn not to criticize and learn just to accept them and take yourself out of it and look at it. And we've already talked about how each things that happen to us, there's a lesson in it, there's a life lesson. Sometimes it's very minuscule, and other times it's huge what that life lesson is. And one of the biggest things for me about the betrayal was I had to accept that I had a huge part in it. And people would go, how can you say that when someone's abused you and you never asked for it? And I thought, well, that's true. I didn't ask for it, but I accepted it as a way of life. So I have to take responsibility for how many years of that behavior that I endured, because at any given moment I could have chosen to leave, but I didn't because I had 4 kids. So my very human aspect of me, where am I going to go? Who's going to look at me, and who's going to take me in with 4 kids? What am I going to do? I didn't have the courage. I hadn't found it yet because I hadn't got low enough to get out of it. So, but what would I say to someone about how to get out of the feelings aligned with betrayal? Just let it be for some time, because it can be a very deep, hurtful thing. It depends on what that betrayal is. Let it be, and then go inside, just like what all the other ladies are saying. Go inside, change your perception, do things to change you, your journey. Connect more with your higher self, because every answer you need is within you. You don't need to go looking outside of yourself, but you need to learn to create that connection, back to that word connection, because your higher self will never let you down. Your soul knows the truth. Your soul knows the answer. So for me, it's just let it be, accept it, disconnect, and then work on yourself, find the strength and start to rise. And in rising, you have to surrender, just like Jesus did. You have to let go of it, and you have to find that freedom to fly once more. And when you do, you will be bigger, you will be bolder, you will be braver, and you will be more beautiful.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Brenda. I actually agree with you when you say you felt when you were abused, going through the abuse, you felt that you contributed to the relationship, because when you sign up for the first time, you met your husband for a date, that the abuse was never part of the agreement. But then when the signs came up, straight away we should come out of that abuse, but we don't. We make excuses for the people that are abusing in the relationship. We say they're doing this because of this, they're doing this because of this, instead of getting out of it. So I think when you actually surrender, like when you are saying you surrender, and then you actually face the truth as it is, like you faced the truth. And that's why you do what you do today, because you had to work on yourself and face the truth and say, this is what I have contributed, so I'm going to work on myself so this does not appear in the future. And when I recognize it in the future, I'll be out in that relationship. So I agree with you. And then another part is when is it Carol Ann? Yes, Carol Ann, if you find out that the people that you thought were on your side, and then you find that they betrayed you, that actually can feel like a shock, because when we meet people, we have assumptions about people that if you are a good person, people intend to assume that everyone thinks the same way, which I used to think that, but now I have this thing that I say, if I depend on God, I will never be disappointed. But if I rely on flesh, I will always be disappointed. The reason why I say if I rely on a human being, I'll always be disappointed, because I know myself that I'm not perfect. And there's a time where I might disappoint someone unknowingly, so somebody else will do the same to me, and then because I had these expectations about people that they have to be perfect, they have to be this, and then when those perfections does not exist anymore, then I'll end up being disappointed. So I actually agree with you, and I'm gonna come to Shireen. How do you stop yourself from being betrayed?
Well, there's so much that's gone on here, and I think there's two things which keep resonating for me. And one is, Carol Ann's talking about communication, really so very important. And something really key for me here is also, before we go to that question, is Brenda talking about the personal, looking at how we interacted with what was going on. So the sense of where's our responsibility. And I think it's really important to make something very clear, that when we say our responsibility, what's important is we're not going to criticize or hurt ourselves when we say we're taking some responsibility. So we need to be really clear about what we mean by that. And it's just really about looking at the truth. It's looking at the truth of what it is, and not apportioning any guilt or blame to ourselves or to anybody else. And I think what was really lovely to hear, it was so nice to hear Brenda was saying about how courage, we've got to look back and we've got to build courage. Go back and build courage, because courage is such an important aspect of this. Because very often when we feel betrayed, the courage disappears, and it's hard to bring back and find the courage. So I think when you're having, so the question is, I think Nomsa was, what do we do in order to stop being betrayed? Is we've got to know how to set a contract up correctly. So that's where the communication is with regards to what Carol Ann said. We have to be able to know that there are assumptions that people will make. And as I said, Gottberg said straight away that within 5 minutes, in an interaction with someone, you will have set the pattern up. So you want to make sure that you are very clear in communication. So if, for example, someone is you're going to do something for somebody, and you're going to expect equal or like response in some way, like, if I do this for you, you need to be clear to say, and when this situation happens, I expect you to do this for me. And you get an agreement. You need to get the agreement. It's kind of like, when I have a contract with my partner, and I say, please, will you do this? And he'll say, yes, maybe. And I'll say, well, are you going to agree to do it or not? And if he says, yes, I will, then I'll just say, well, when? Just so that I have an idea, when would you agree to do it? So that I know that there's a contract. I've set up the contract, and once the contract's set, it's interesting, people honor contracts once it's very clear. So like in any situation, when you have a relationship with someone, you set the contract, you check the terms. If someone is saying, I'll see you later, you need to check, when will you see me later? So that I'm not sitting there when this person has the idea that it's okay to not phone back. And then you get hurt. Yeah. So it's really about knowing how to set a really good contract. So it's almost like, and there's the book, the Tibetan book of the living and the dead. You need to set a good, you prepare for a good death or a separation so that you can have a good life. So if you do that, you set the contracts up properly, no assumptions, then what happens is you have peace because you don't have conflict. Yeah. You're not worrying about what they're thinking about. So the contract is key.
so much. Thank you so much. Over to you, Dr. Bigot, please. Do you want to add anything to what Shireen has just said?
Thank you. Yeah, I love that. At the end of the day, a good part of, like Shireen says, clarity and detail in communications can minimize a lot of not assuming how I think the original question is how we prevent ourselves from getting betrayed. And a couple things definitely. One is to have clarity in communications. As Shireen said, that's a wonderful example. If you say you're going to do something, then clarify when are you going to do that. If somebody says, okay, I'll help you, well, help is a huge range of things. You might have in your mind this is what they're going to do, and the other person might have an idea of, I'll give you a suggestion or two. That's all they were going to help you with. Hello. So having a clarity, a detailed communications. I'm an oncologist, and with some of the treatment that we have, it detail in such a precision. In other words, when you do things like chemotherapy, 0.001 can make a difference in somebody's becoming very ill or not. And so we are very fine-tuned with detail. If you notice my email and my messages, it's always this, and I even spell out, I don't just say, oh, tomorrow. What does tomorrow mean for me and you? If you're different time zone, I will be like, tomorrow, Saturday, this date, this time zone. It's just because part of my routine being very detailed, so there's no miscommunications. Can you imagine having a miscommunication with chemotherapy? And then the other part to me in preventing for ourselves from getting betrayed is to actually allowing people to know what it is that who we are and what we would love. Many times we want to either fit in because that's what we were taught since we were a kid, or we want to please somebody, which is a form of fitting in actually, and so we don't speak our truth. And if you don't speak your truth, if you don't even let people know who you really are and what you really truly love, how would they know? They might say, oh, I thought everything was fine. And this is an example with a lot of couples actually. Many people have what they call surprise divorce, including myself back then. And I was like, oh, I thought you're perfectly happy. I thought everything was fine, and turned out that it's not. And then there were other relationships where it was like, oh, the person says, I different relationship, even at work. I finally said, you know what, this just doesn't work for me, and here we go. Here's my resignations. I'm moving on to whatever. And they said, well, hello. I thought you're perfectly happy. We have all this thing and this plan together with you we love you so much. And this has truly happened before. But we love you so much. We were thinking about offering this to you, and we were offering that to you. And I thought, no, I don't like the way things done in here. And looking back, could I speak up a little more? Absolutely, I could have. And how would they know that you're not happy? How would anybody know if you're not happy? If you do not know who you are, what it is really feel best for you, and stepping into your own truth and not worrying about anybody being perfect. So to me, there is two aspects of not getting betrayed. First is you want to make sure that you have not been betraying yourself, because if you do, then nobody else can do any better than you. And then to also communicate once you discover what it is that you would really love, then to communicate clearly, specifically, and in detail.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bigot. I'm gonna come to you, Brenda, before I comment to anyone. I'll finish you all. Anything you would like to add to what Dr. Bigot and Shireen have just said?
No, but again, it's down to language. So I'm just going to say something short, but it's different language. So to stop yourself being betrayed, know who you are, make sure you've got boundaries. We've been using the word assumption, but I would use the word expectation. It's when we expect things from people and they don't deliver. That's not their fault. It's our fault for having the expectation in the first place. Now, my daughter had asked for family and friends to give a little video for my grandson's 16th birthday. But of course, people are busy, just exactly what you're saying there, Birgit. It's about, you know, can you do it for me? But when do you need it by? You know, there's it's like mañana. So it was a few days before that she needed them for, and she put a post out on Facebook that said something like, you shouldn't expect, maybe you'd ask something more than someone could give you. And I thought, you know, that's great, because when we have an expectation on people, then we will get disappointed, we will feel betrayed. So when we choose, switch our word from expectation to intention, and we look at the language we use, then we can protect ourselves more. So and it's about control. So we can only do what we can control. We can't control what others will think, say, and how they will act. So we release expectation, we create our own boundaries, and we communicate it. So there's elements of everything that everybody said today. If we put them in a melting pot, we'll come out with something lovely. So it's about your own boundaries, so that you just prevent yourself from being betrayed. But when we let these boundaries down sometimes and let people in, then we just have an awareness that if our expectation, which I don't like that word actually, that we're not using, we're not thinking of those expectations, then we're protecting ourselves more and more. And nothing is 100% perfect, as Shireen said at the start. So, you know, I live by the 80-20 rule. So if I'm 80% of the time living by my boundaries, and setting boundaries, I'm going to be happy. You know, but setting boundaries is a difficult thing, especially if you're a giver, especially, you know, if you know, maybe even a people pleaser and all of that. Setting boundaries can be a challenge. I know it's a challenge for me, but I'm getting better at setting those boundaries, you know. And as Dr. Bigot said about, you know, the time in 0.1%. So in publishing, we have landmarks. So our authors know this needs to be done by this date. This part of the book journey needs to be done by this date. And if we don't meet those dates, guess what happens? It can impact on your launch date. So setting those boundaries out straight away and having those landmarks in that timeline is absolutely important. So that's how I think we can start not allowing ourselves to be betrayed in the future.
Before we go any further, Carol Ann, there's someone who is asking a question. Basically, this person has been betrayed by someone, but the person who was betrayed, the person who betrayed her, they're not asking the help directly. She's asking, is it a good way to help that person who betrayed you? Or she feels that if she doesn't help him, he is going to destroy himself. So how can I handle the situation, and how can I survive with this situation? Carol Ann, please, can you answer these questions? If anyone feels that they have some comment they need to add, please feel free.
I'm hearing there's an element of wanting to fix the other person, and I think you have to recognize it's their journey, and whatever they're going through is what they're going through. You need to heal yourself first. Look to yourself, go in, and what we've been saying here today in many different ways is, what part have you played in that? And it's not about blame. It's about the lesson that your higher self asks that other person to show up in the way they did, so you could learn the lesson. And if you work on yourself and heal yourself, it gives that other person permission to move on and heal themselves. But also what you can do is actually see that other person as whole, healed, and complete, because that gives them permission to find for themselves what's going on. We have this, we want to help that other person. We want to fix them, change them, support them in somehow. The best way you can do it is by working on yourself, loving yourself, and recognizing what took you to this situation. If there's any other question that comes out of this, it's very difficult without talking to somebody and actually then having the dialogue backwards and forwards. But really, my advice is look to yourself. And that really ties in with what I was going to be saying about, in answer to the question, how do you stop yourself from being betrayed? I don't think you can ever stop yourself from being betrayed. What you can do is lessen the chances by doing what we've been saying, understanding yourself, understanding your boundaries, who you are. But it's very difficult to set a boundary if you don't actually know what you stand for or what you're about, or if you don't know your own self. So again, it's that getting to know yourself. But it's also, the thing to do is not to crucify yourself. Because part of what we were saying, the title of this is how to stop yourself being crucified. Well, the only way you can crucify yourself is through the language that you speak to yourself in. Are you criticizing yourself? Are you, oh, there's something here that wants to be said that hasn't yet been said. Are you blaming yourself for the way it's gone? Because again, that's criticizing yourself. That's crucifying yourself. Don't blame yourself. There is no blame. It's about looking at the situation. What's the lesson that's here to be learned? That's how you can stop being crucified. And it's how you can lessen it happening again. That particular piece of betrayal can then be stopped. And that can actually be stopped. But there are, as we've said, there are many forms of betrayal. And again, each one is a lesson. So it's about going inside. And I always go inside, and there's two questions I ask myself. What part of me has asked this person to show up in this way so that this has now happened? What's here for me to learn? And the other question is, when did I do this to somebody else? And that can be a past life, something that has come down, through the lives, generationally, maybe even there's a vibration within you that's now ready to be healed. It's not about, saying there's blame here. It's about a lesson that's here that you can now face up to and learn from it. And remember, you're not given anything that you don't have the tools and the resources and the ability to work through. And so it's standing in gratitude for the situation and asking your higher self, how can I move on from this? What is the lesson here? And then forgive yourself and embrace the other person and hold them in that vision of being whole, healed, and complete. And please do continue this dialogue and get in touch with us, if you feel there's something else that needs to be answered here. And thank you for your question.
Thank you so much, Carol Ann. Anyone wants to add to the question, please?
I just read the question, so I think what Caroline has said, heal yourself, is really the key. But I think there's also something key that I'm hearing here in this, and I'm looking at it, is the idea of you at Amji that wants to actually help this person. Yeah. So there's a kind of a thing of wanting to help, but also knowing that if you help in a particular way, that you will be able to, that maybe this person won't go and work. So I think there's something really beautiful here, is your wonderful ability to see this very big picture for yourself. And I think that, one of the things which Caroline was saying, maybe this is something that needs to be looked at in a much bigger perspective. And one of the things is that everybody has their own sole purpose or their own way of having to deal with things. And in actual fact, it's not up to you to deal with his betrayal. It's up to you to deal with how you take care of you in the way that you need to take care of you in order to heal. And that's really the key. We're not there to deal with someone else's stuff. We're there to deal with our own. And how do we manage that for ourselves? And I think to be really key, you've got such beautiful wisdom there already with the idea of, being aware of these two aspects. And I think it's just really to focus in on yourself here and get that courage, find that ability to just feel the feeling deeply, feel it. Don't try and run away from it or get scared from it. Just go with it. Go inside. Let that wound have what it needs, attention. Have a look at where and how this came about. And, if you're part of a relationship, you're going to have some kind of communication that will be part of it. But that's not to blame. That's to look at it and go, wow, okay, what can I do next? But remember, we're not here to solve someone else's problem. We're here to solve our own.
So much. Thank you so much, Shireen. I hope he answered the question for our audience. Over to you, Dr. Bickett. Is there anything you'd like to leave with our audience, please?
I will first.
You're muted.
You're muted.
I think
All right, I unmuted.
She unmuted herself, and then I pressed trying to ask her to unmute, then I muted her.
See, that could be a form of betrayal if you don't keep going through, right? And so talking about betrayal, you could be betraying yourself and then somebody try to help you and then it looks like you're being betrayed more. So it's all about perceptions. It is all about perceptions. One thing that I want to say is a lot of time to letting go betrayal, it's involve forgiveness. And just the grief recovery specialist has a very good way of looking at forgiveness. Forgiveness has nothing to do with agreeing or approving. Forgiveness, truly, at the bottom of it, is letting go of your hope that things happen differently. Some of us able to go to the spiritual part of us and so forth, but some of us cannot. Some of us do not subscribes to the concept of universe, even, and never mind God or anything like that. And even in that place, there is still an opportunity for you to be able to forgive, and it is in the form of knowing that to forgive, to letting go the betrayal that's still holding you back, is letting go of your hope that things happen differently and taking the power back in your hand such that you will be able to move on now and no longer impacted and no longer crucified by whatever happened in the past and actually come out a winner. And so that would be my final message for today.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Brenda. Any words of encouragement to our audience?
So I would say I concur with my beautiful friends here, and it's all about going inside. To know who you are from the inside out. And also it's about knowing that you are not a savior. So I agree with that we're here to work on ourselves, to walk a path towards enlightenment, to know, to understanding, to acceptance, to forgiveness, to walk in that path in love. I believe that when we connect with ourselves and learn the power of self-love, and we will rise in our power and our light will shine, and people will be less likely to betray you. But I do agree with what Carol Ann said. We cannot stop others from betraying us if that is their vision, their path, or even whether it's intentional or unintentional. So just accepting and letting be, and just coming from a place of love help you in betrayal, either betraying someone else, because if it comes from a place of love, it certainly will not be intentional, and it's about perception, as Brigitte said. But just accept and live life in love and joy and find the inner peace. These three things for me is what I have channeled recently, a message I've been given. If we live there from acceptance, going into self-love, finding joy and sharing that with others, and coming from a place of calm and peace, then the world, if we all do it individually, the world will be a better place, and betrayal will not be part of our language.
So much, Brenda. Over to you, Carol Ann. Please, words of encouragement before we leave.
There's just one thing that's just popped into my head that's here to sort of wrap up, and that's just whatever the situation is that you find yourself in, you know, if there is this betrayal and you're not sure how to move on, just say this one very simple prayer. It's called the Ho'opono prayer, and it's, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you. I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you. And just sit and just repeat that over and over again, and just notice what shifts. It's a very powerful prayer. So yeah, that's all. Yeah, that's what came to mind.
Thank you so much, Shireen.
Thank you, Caroline. That was, I sent that Ho'opono to someone this morning when he was talking about the tech gods of computers. So it was a really good reminder to hear it again. So thank you. I think what's really reminded me, and it's beautiful, was to have Birgit's one, and I've used it in my book, which is, you know, we have to let go of the past so that we can have a future, so we can take hold of our future. And it really is about letting go of that, of the expectation of what we've created, and let go of all the stuff that we held for that, in the hope of that future, because we all build these futures. So for me, I think out of probably all of this year, that's been the one that really is resonating for me as a ruminant, because I ruminate quite a lot. Yeah, it's really about doing that. So another thing is to let go of that. So the forgive, and I love playing on words, is to give, is to give. It's the for of the giving. So we're not just about forgiving and letting go and forgetting. What we're doing is we're saying we're forgiving consciously. We're paying attention, and we're choosing another path to look for, because we're not going to hold this as our future. We're going to hold a different future.
Thank you so much, everyone who has been watching the talk and our speakers. For those who are watching, please, like the speakers have said, try to forgive yourself and throw away the betrayal and erase the imprints that comes with the betrayal as well, and start your faith slowly and find others who have faith in you and regain that faith as well, and don't betray yourself. That's what the speakers have mentioned. And detach from people you don't trust, because love is about trust. Love is about trust. You have to hang out with people that you believe that they align with your desires, your beliefs, and you trust them. So thank you so much. For those who are watching, we're here Monday to Friday, 1 p.m. UK time. So please join us Monday to Friday. And if you're watching this video and you love the message, please press the heart button and share some loves. God bless you, everyone. Okay.
Welcome to Ngozi Talk Shows. Lead from within.
Find your own voice.
Challenges we have had to overcome in 2020.
Find your own voice.
The world has become united by the unseen, knowing there are no guarantees for tomorrow.
Lead from within.
Find your own voice.
Let the world hear your voice and be filled within.
For the day has come for you to be a great leader.
The time has come to break away from the pain, distraction, experience the unthinkable.
Live with grace, everyone.